Hey Star Trek fans, Dan Gunther here with another Star Trek Discovery episode review, this time for episode 9, Into the Forest I Go. Now, I realize this review is quite late. There are a few reasons for that. Some stuff going on in my life that I won't really get into here. I made a short video a little while ago explaining a little bit about that. But suffice it to say, I know I am weeks late with this one, and I do apologize, so let's get right into it. This episode follows on immediately after the previous episode, Si Vis Pacem Parabellum. That's my best attempt at the Latin. At the end of that episode, we learned that the Klingons are warping into the system that the Discovery is in, the Pavan system, and Starfleet orders Discovery to retreat. Saru objects, and Lorca reveals that he has no intention of leaving the Pavans to die, and tasks the crew with cracking the Klingon cloaking device. In the meantime, they set course for Starbase 46, traveling just at warp instead of using a spore jump, to give them time to discover a way to crack the Klingons' cloaking device and save the Pavans. I really like this scene between Lorca and Stamets. It's very reminiscent of a similar scene in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. In this scene, Lorca uses Stamets to come up with a fairly flimsy excuse to not use the spore drive, similar to the way Spock encouraged Scotty to report problems with the Enterprise's warp drive. I also want to comment a little bit about the episode's use of Starbase 46. A lot of people have asked, why not 47? It seems like a very easy place to stick one of the ubiquitous references to Star Trek's secret number. Well, I personally am glad they did not use 47 because Starbase 47, at least to me, will always refer to this station, Vanguard, from the Star Trek Vanguard series of novels. Now, of course, the novels aren't widely known to the wider Trek fandom, but for me, I'm really glad they kind of steered clear of it because Starbase 47 has a very specific story, and for anybody out there who has not read them, I urge you to go check out the Star Trek Vanguard series of novels because they really are quite great. Anyway, back to the episode. The crew comes up with a plan to plant sensors aboard the Klingon vessel, which will allow Discovery to utilize the imperfections in the cloaking device to paint a picture of the exact position of the Klingon ship. To receive telemetry from the probes and process it faster, Lorca proposes using the spore drive to get telemetry from the sensors from a variety of positions very quickly. This maneuver will require 133 rapid spore jumps, and with Stamets experiencing the side effects we saw in the previous episode, this will no doubt be very taxing on him. After examining Stamets, Culber has some very real concerns about the lieutenant's health, but Lorca convinces Stamets to undertake the 133 rapid jumps by appealing to his scientific curiosity. It turns out that Lorca has been amassing a huge amount of information with each of Discovery's jumps, and these 133 jumps will give them even more data. Specifically, it seems that Lorca is interested in accessing parallel realities, alternative parallel universes that may be accessible using the spore drive. He tells Stamets that they have to win the war, but after that, the possibilities are endless. The alternative parallel universes idea will of course come into play later in this series. We've had certain spoilers that show us that the mirror universe will play a part in Discovery. And of course, things are a little in flux at the end of this episode. We will realize that nobody knows exactly where Discovery is, and it's possible that they may be in a parallel universe, or maybe even the mirror universe. But we'll get there. Lorca tasks Lieutenant Tyler with assembling a boarding party, and Tyler suggests that he take Burnham, which Lorca flatly refuses. He believes that the mission will be too dangerous, but Burnham convinces him to allow her to go. I want to take this moment to talk a little bit about Lorca's seeming protectiveness of Burnham. I'm really not sure what that's all about. Over the last few episodes, we've seen hints of this protectiveness of Burnham and of this special regard that he has for her. For example, in the episode Lethe, he disobeys Starfleet orders in order to allow Burnham to attempt to rescue Sarek. In that same episode, he tells Lieutenant Tyler to return with Burnham in one piece, or don't return at all. And Tilly even makes mention of the fact that Lorca has practically adopted Burnham. I've seen some theories floating around on the internet as to why he has this special regard for her. Some people think that he may be setting her up to take the fall for something and use her as a scapegoat. I'm not convinced of that, but at the same time, I'm really not sure what this is all about. And it's a part of Lorca's character that I'm really interested in, and I can't wait to see more about it. So with the Klingon sarcophagus ship arriving at Pavo and the plans in place to board the ship and plant the sensors, Lorca orders a jump back to Pavo. And while I usually don't just comment on things because they look really effing cool, this looks really effing cool. Discovery's presence causes Call to uncloak the Klingon ship of the dead, and Burnham and Tyler beam aboard. They plant the first sensor, and I have to say, can't they put like a dimmer switch or a mute button on these things, because this is not very stealthy at all.
Uplink to Discovery established.
Which way to the bridge?
I mean, really, a vocal feedback, plus it just keeps beeping after they've already planted it? This is not a good idea. On their way to the bridge to plant the second sensor, they detect a human life sign, and it turns out to be Admiral Cornwell, who it turns out did survive the events of the previous episode. As a little aside here, I wonder when Burnham detected the human life sign if she thought that it might be Captain Georgiou. I know she saw her get stabbed in the episode Battle at the Binary Stars, but I wonder if she thought it was possible that the Klingons revived her. Anyway, that has no real bearing on the episode. I just wonder if it went through her mind at all. We also get a few more hints about Tyler here, as he seems to know his way around the Klingon ship quite well and really easily is able to defeat their systems. Although, if this is like any set of doors elsewhere in the Star Trek universe, apparently you just wreck the doorbell and it'll open. In the room where they find Admiral Cornwell, they also discover Laurel, and Lieutenant Tyler faces her for the first time after being freed from captivity. Now, we get a bunch of flashbacks to his supposed torture here. I did freeze frame and go through them. I have to admit, I was looking for evidence that supports the Vok is Tyler theory. And I mean, the creators of the show are clever enough. They're not going to put anything immediately damning in this montage here. But we do see a bunch of surgical instruments that could be used if there was some sort of significant body alteration going on, but at the same time, they could just be implements of torture. So while I was really hoping to find some sort of smoking gun here, there really isn't any evidence other than circumstantial. Lieutenant Tyler is pretty much incapacitated when he faces Laurel, suffering from severe PTSD following the torture at her hands. Burnham elects to continue the mission herself, leaving Tyler with Admiral Cornwell. She sneaks onto the bridge and plants the second sensor, which of course announces itself quite loudly, starts beeping, and then starts spinning. I mean, really, are there any more ways for these sensors to jump up and down and say, "Look over here, it's me, it's me"? I better just let this go. It's gonna give me a headache. With the sensors in place, Discovery begins spore jumping around the ship, attacking from various angles, forcing Call to cloak the vessel. And Lieutenant Stamets begins his 133 spore jump sequence. While the jumps appear to be going smoothly, it's obviously taking a huge toll on Stamets, who is having a very rough time. At one point, he says,
There's a clearing in the forest. That's how they go.
Jump 63.
I'm really curious, what does this mean? I have a feeling this line is going to be very important in Discovery's future. While the jumps are going smoothly, they are taking a long time, and it seems like a very long time, especially for Stamets, who is in the chamber, but also to the Klingons, who really aren't sure what Discovery's doing, and Call gives the order to warp away, when Burnham bursts out and stuns two Klingons, revealing herself as a distraction to keep them where they are. Burnham taunts Cole and challenges him to a fight, with probably the most mic drop line from a Starfleet officer ever.
You were not here when Takuvma fell.
And how would you know such things?
Because I was here. I'm the one who killed Takuvma.
Back with Cornwell and Tyler, they are discovered, and Cornwell does her best to hold off the advancing Klingons, but since she can't move her legs, her actions are limited. She attempts to get Tyler to snap out of it, and eventually succeeds when Tyler focuses on his feelings for Burnham. Back on the bridge, Burnham and Cole fight bitterly, with each of them seeming to gain the upper hand at various points. The jump sequence is completed, but Discovery's computer needs 4 or 5 minutes to complete the calculations of the Klingon ship's cloaking device imperfections. Amazingly, the Klingon ship is not firing back, thanks to Burnham's continued distraction of Cole. Eventually, the calculations are done, and Discovery is able to locate the Klingon ship and beam the boarding party back, including a rescued Admiral Cornwell, which Lorca seems somewhat ambivalent about. L'Rell also manages to pull a Gillian Taylor and escapes to Discovery by hitching a ride by grabbing Lieutenant Tyler from behind. I want to comment a little bit about this move by Lorca. This is really badass. As we know, his eyes were damaged in a previous engagement, and he can't handle extreme light changes very easily, but he does take a treatment that allows him some temporary reprieve. He takes that treatment simply in order to be able to watch the Klingon ship explode. I mean, that's pretty badass. And then immediately after that, we get the bit of a cliched shot of someone walking away from an explosion. But this is really something we've never seen in Star Trek before, and I have to say, this is pretty damn cool. Following the end of the engagement, Discovery ensures that the information about the Klingon cloaking devices is dispersed throughout the fleet, and Admiral Terrell orders Lorca and the Discovery home, something which Lorca is obviously none too pleased about. Terrell tells him that they are going to award him the Legion of Honor and that he has done well, but I don't think the Admiral is being entirely honest here. I think that they want Discovery home and Lorca under their control because they know he's become a maverick and is not responding to orders. We then get this scene between Burnham and Tyler, which includes a very frank, very honest discussion between the two of them about Tyler's torture at the hands of L'Rell. Now, this is a very important discussion of assault and what it's like to be a victim of assault, especially coming at this time with so much going on in the real world and so much coming to light. I think sexual assault is a very important topic, and it's addressed very well here. This is something that Star Trek has attempted to do a bit in the past with somewhat mixed results. I think some episodes that deal with violations, such as TNG's Violations and episodes like that, kind of miss the mark generally when they're talking about assault, and I love the frankness of this discussion and the difficulty that the characters have in discussing it. The honest feelings of guilt that victims can have is very powerful, and coming from actor Shazad Latif, whose acting is incredible in this scene, as well as Sonequa Martin-Green, she also puts in an amazing performance here. This is just a really great scene and is really, really moving. I really was touched by this. We then get this scene with Lorca and Stamets ruminating about their recent experiences. Stamets offers to make one last spore drive to get Discovery back to Starbase 46, and Lorca accepts. Stamets points out that when he says one last spore jump, he really means one last jump. He wants to stop being the component in the drive system after this and have Starfleet Medical look at him and figure out what the symptoms he's been experiencing mean. Lorca accepts this condition, but I have to wonder if this is the moment that forces Lorca's hand at the end. We'll get to that in a few minutes, but Lorca plays a big gamble towards the end of this episode, and I'm really not sure yet what it means, but it seems as though he might have had his hand forced, knowing that this would be his last chance to do what he does. Also, I have to say, how beautiful are the shots in this scene? Have we ever had a Star Trek series that looks as amazing as this does? I know I just sound like I'm gushing at this point, but some of these shots are just gorgeous. Back in Tyler's quarters, Tyler is plagued by memories and nightmares, reliving the assault by L'Rell. This causes him to go to the brig to confront L'Rell, and asks her, "What did you do to me?" Now, we get some really interesting clues here. Of course, my theory is that Tyler is the Klingon Vok. I think at this point, he does not know that. He is so deep undercover, maybe like a Manchurian candidate who does not know that he's a Klingon. But we get some interesting interaction between him and L'Rell here.
Do not worry. I will never let them hurt you.
Command stations. command stations.
Soon.
So definitely some very interesting developments to come on this front. Discovery goes to black alert and prepares to jump to Starbase 46, and we get this wonderful scene between Stamets and Culber with the first kiss between two men on Star Trek before, which is definitely a huge milestone and something to which I have to say, about time. This scene also has the distinct flavor of one last job before retirement, which, as you know from dramatic movies and TV shows, that's just always a great thing, and everything's going to turn out just fine, I'm sure. So here's the moment that has caused a lot of debate online, and I made a video a couple weeks ago about this, where Lorca very obviously, if you freeze frame, puts in some sort of override on this final jump. Now we have the coordinates for all the previous jumps, and they're set coordinates, but this one says override Lorca G, and then the coordinates are unknown. So whatever happens at the end here, Lorca is what caused it. Now, I don't know if what happens is what he intended to have happen or if something went wrong in all of that, but Lorca was definitely trying to do something. There are a bunch of theories out there. Maybe he was trying to avoid going back to Starfleet Command and just wanted to take the ship somewhere else to avoid having to give up command. Or maybe something else is going on. We know, of course, they were talking about parallel realities earlier in the episode. Is Lorca trying to get to one of those parallel realities? And at the end of the episode, does he succeed? And of course, he utters his ominous line.
Let's go home.
So something goes very obviously wrong in the spore jump. And again, if you look at this effect, Discovery splits in two. And normally when it goes into spore drive, it drops away really quickly. But in this scene, you'll see it splits in two. And then there's both a Discovery going up and a Discovery going down. So what's going on here? And this, of course, lends credence to the idea that maybe they're in the mirror universe because, you know, it's sort of similar to the effect in Mirror Mirror when we saw the transition between the two universes where the Enterprise kind of flipped rapidly between the Prime universe and the mirror universe counterpart. So, I mean, who knows what this means, but it could be a visual clue linking these two episodes together. So Discovery finds itself in the middle of a debris field. No one seems to know what they are. Lorca also seems to be very confused as to where they are. This could be a real reaction, or it could be very good acting by the good captain. We're really not sure. Again, it looks like he attempted to do something, but this may or may not have been the desired result. Down in engineering, Stamets is collapsed. And when he opens his eyes, they have a very distinctive, milky look to them. Kind of almost like Gary Mitchell's eyes from Where No Man Has Gone Before, but slightly different. There's been some theories online linking this to Gary Mitchell's condition in that episode. It definitely could be a link, or it could be something else entirely. And we also get this interesting line by Stamets, which again seems to point to the idea of alternate realities, whether it's the mirror universe or just multiple quantum realities like the TNG episode Parallels.
So many. I can see them all. Infinite permutations. It's magnificent. Paul!
And with that, Discovery goes on break until January 7th, so we're left with a few weeks to try and suss out what's going on, but in order to get any real answers, unfortunately, we will have to wait until then. Before I end this video, I wanted to talk about a few continuity references that came up in this episode. First is the Legion of Honor, which Admiral Tyrrell says that they plan to give to Captain Lorca. Now, the Legion of Honor has come up before in Star Trek Discovery. We learn from her record in the Discovery episode The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry that Captain Philippa Georgiou received the Legion of Honor prior to 2256. Other recipients of the Legion of Honor mentioned in Star Trek include Dr. Leonard McCoy, prior to 2267 received the Legion of Honor as referenced in the episode Court Martial, and Data received the Legion of Honor according to his Starfleet record read out in the courtroom in The Measure of a Man. Next was a lovely little reference heard on the intercom in Discovery. Cadet Decker is told to report to the ready room according to a voice on the intercom.
Cadet Decker, please report to the ready room.
Now, timing-wise, this could be the future Captain Will Decker of the Enterprise in Star Trek The Motion Picture. And finally, we get a lovely little reference to the opera La Boheme by Lieutenant Stamets. He promises to take Dr. Culber to a showing of it when they arrive at Starbase 46. Now, the actors who play Culber and Stamets both appeared in productions of Rent, which, of course, is based on the opera La Boheme, so it's a nice little reference to that. Well, I have to say, I really enjoyed the episode Into the Forest I Go. I think it has replaced Lethe as my favorite episode so far of Star Trek Discovery. There's a lot going on in this, and a lot of really interesting questions raised, as well as some really great actions. I honestly did not expect them to kill off Kol and destroy the Ship of the Dead in this episode. It was kind of similar to them killing T'Kuvma at the end of Battle of the Binary Stars. This was a character I thought was going to be sticking around a lot longer. I thought he was going to be kind of a major baddie still going forward in Discovery, but it's clear that the writers have very different plans. So I look forward to seeing what happens from here on out. I honestly can't wait for the new episode in January. I can't wait to see where the series is going. And so far, I have to say, I've had a lot of fun speculating, and I really look forward to continuing the speculation in the weeks to come. In the meantime, I have some ideas for some more videos. I want to continue my book reviews, which I've kind of let slide in the last little while, as well as other videos to do with Star Trek. So stay tuned. There's lots more coming between now and January when we get back to Star Trek Discovery. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you liked this video, please tell me in the comments and let me know what your theories are with regards to Star Trek Discovery going forward. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Links are all in the description below. And in the meantime, live long and prosper. I'll see you in the next video.